Like I said, you will use this. Being able to communicate this kind of data, thinking about things that happen bad in your system. You might be an incident response person. You might be a security engineer that has to deal between your engineers and the incident response. You might have to teach your system administrators. You put out, here's our incident response policy. Tell us if you see anything weird. What does that mean? How do we tell you something weird? It's just a weird thing. I have another point. Oh, a lot of points I wanted to mention. If you look at the spread of incident response, there's a pretty undeniable correlation between the top 3 teams and the amount of incident responses generated. It is clear cut, 100%. They actually, the top 3 teams, when I added up, all submitted within 1 incident response of each other. I think that there was 2 of the top 3 that did 11, and 1 of them did 12. I'd have to write down the numbers, and I apologize for that. This is what we're looking for. There's a lot of confusing stuff going on there, but it's like journalism. These are the questions we want to know. What's the source IP of the hit? What's your destination? If you don't know, put that in there. We haven't been able to determine that. What log files did you look at? What does something weird happen? When did it happen? How did you know it? And what were they doing? Really, what I was really looking for in scoring was really, at this point, source IP, destination IP address. How did we know what happened? What was the weird thing that happened? And what did we do to fix it? And if the reports didn't have all those things, you didn't get full points back. Okay. Next slide. Let's see if I can remember what this is about. That's really great advice on the first dot, but I really don't know what I had to say. I made these slides this morning. But that's really good advice. I'll try to take that. It's probably having to do with a lot of the time with it's a natural effort, and I've been doing this for a really long time. I swear to goodness, that is my first thought still. After all this has been done to me, something's not working in my system. Somebody did something with security. Someone changed the firewall. I've been an attacker because I'm so smart. There's obviously no way I've made a mistake. This is impossible. Some bad guy has gotten in there. A sidebar to that, incident response, don't send us your security logs. I got a few. It's not the worst thing in the world, but a few of them is like, somebody tried to do something bad and we stopped it. It's great, and that's good. You should be doing that, but if you send those to your incident response guys in your life, they'll be like, that's odd. Learn to read your logs. As people say, normal. Learn what's normal. Learning how to read your logs. This is such a crazy real-world thing I see all the time, where we go into somebody who's having issues, and if they actually dug into your logs, some of these systems have, $100,000, $250,000, everything in security costs $250,000. Logging systems where they're all being collected and correlated, but they're never being tuned. No one's actually looking at the data. It happens all the time. Let me see your policy. Well, here's our logging policy. Here's the events that we log. Here's the fact that we collected a centralized server, but they're correlated, all that stuff. Well, who looks at it? Well, Bob, the system administrator, looks at it. Bob, do you look at these? I don't have time to look at logs. I'm not even joking. I see that as equally often as not in going to our clients. Oh yeah, here's where I said that. Yeah, points. Really, you're looking at, if you think about it, if you do an incident response, if you turn in, you get attacked twice, and I'll just pick them up. You get attacked, you get popped. It's 100 points for a pop, right? Someone pops just get 100 points. If you do an incident response on 2 of those, one of them goes away. And I know that we've told you that a lot, but it's really differential. It's up in scores. If you see something, say something, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I said, they're not your firewall IDS log. They're not designed for cycles. Learning a bit of objectivity, how to separate what you do from writing. It's like we were talking about Gary's problem usernames and how you miss them. He knows in his head what's going on there already. He might see that, but the brain thinks it's like we know we're talking about something. I feel pretty decent. They really, I have no idea. I'm sorry. This is the first year in being at position. A lot of these people, I know it's a fun story. There's a lot of days.
Bravo on you guys. It seemed to work reasonably well for us. I don't think we had anything huge explode this year on the network. We've had that in the past, but I think our service request response was actually better this year, especially adding in the URL whitelisting. I think we tried to get back to you guys as quick as we could. We had a lot more people this year than we normally do on hand, so I think that helped tremendously. Our internal coordination is getting a lot better, so hopefully we can keep that up. The cloning station, I think, worked pretty well. I don't know if anybody really had any issues with it, other than the reconfiguring the boxes specifically for the teams, which usually was just us. We run one script and then off you go. So I think that worked relatively well. I don't think anybody was up there for hours and hours and hours, unless they wanted to be. So the proxy, I think, actually worked really well. Yeah, having multiple accounts on the deny page, that was a fun addition, last minute addition. I don't know how many of you, a lot of people, I guess, didn't see the board link at the bottom of the page where it pointed you over to 24
Yeah, I was told to stop playing.
So, and we had to stop testing the proxy ourselves because we kept clicking on it. We were playing 2048, 2016, 21 behind us. Yeah. So, getting the red team connected in the other room was a bit of a challenge, especially the first day. The first day we didn't have any direct connection back to the red team room. So we had to put two open VPN boxes back to back and actually bridge them back onto the right network internally in the core network, and that worked okay. A couple of minor issues that we ran into, but it seemed to work okay. The second day was a little bit better. We actually were able to get a direct link between the red team room and the internal competition, so that helped a lot. And I know a lot of people are going to be mad at me for this, but I think not providing more detailed topology, in my opinion, worked. Because you guys had no idea where half your stuff was up until the end of the competition. It was actually scary when we came around, like, here's your ASA, credentials and information, and they're like, wait, we have an ASA? And I'm like, we're 6 hours in, you guys don't know this? We started out with all the teams inside our core vCenter. All the cloud systems were attached to our vCenter. By the end of day one, only one of you guys had kicked us out. We still had full access to all the vCenters other than one team. I think by the end of the second day, I think we were down to 4. We still have access to 5 of them. So you guys know you had a VMware cloud, right? So make sure that gets locked down. And that was also, it was kind of convenient though for us because people who needed restores for VM images, we could just drop it directly onto their ESXi system because they hadn't kicked us out. Same thing kind of goes for the ASAs that were back there. I think by the end of day one, we still have administrative access on all 7 using the default credentials. By the end of day 2, I think we were down to 4 or 5. We still had default passwords on them. So,
What?
Yeah. So, yeah, you guys, yeah, there was an ASA there. Please change the default passwords. So I think that worked out. I mean, there's always arguments both ways. Oh, we need a topology up front. Oh, we need we shouldn't have a topology up front because you guys should be doing this as part of your inventory. My team definitely tells you to do it. You should be doing it anyway as part of your strategy coming in. You need to know what's out there. A lot of teams are like, oh, it's really hard to track down. I'm like, you should be investigating anything that comes back with our reports. The VMware servers definitely were coming back with our reports. So. Just something to look for next time and we'll work on. So some of the things that we did that failed miserably in a large fire pit of death. The centralized printing was terrible. Apparently, even though Cups is a print sharing server, it doesn't actually share printers very well. So we're going to roll with a regular solid share next year. Hopefully you can just double click add and get done with it. The other problem we had was the printer we were using kept going to sleep, and I guess cops couldn't figure out how to wake it up, so we had to keep going, pushing the button, wake up the printer. I think only one team actually did successfully send a print shot the entire competition. So. But, I don't know, we're fine for my laptop. I don't know if your guys' problem was. But, yeah, so the other thing, I don't know how many of you guys caught on, but at the beginning of day 2, the black team and all wireless and stuff, we had no DHCP, couldn't figure out why. The core switch was complaining very loudly about DHCP conflicts, and it turned out, we're not 100% sure how it happened, but our traffic generator, the breaking point, we think broke things. Yeah, we unplugged it and it fixed itself, so we're assuming that was it. But it running with the same configuration we had from the start of day 1, so we're not sure why something broke things, but so we did end up basically red teaming and DOSing ourselves. But because it was a DOS, we didn't lose any points, so we're sure we had a request from a team to set up an internal 2048 scoreboard on the Squid Denied page so that you guys can play 2048 and compete against each other and see each other's scores. So we'll look at doing that next year. Yeah, get your board. There was probably more that we failed at. I don't know if anybody else to shout it out and I can speak to it. You know, we're always looking to improve. If there's something you think we can do better or differently, you know, please let us know. You know, we're here to help you guys. I mean, as long as it doesn't make it way too difficult on us to make it easy for you, we're not that interested in, you know, going that route. But if it makes it easier for us, you can do more to go. We love to hear it. So.
More earthquakes.
More earthquakes, yes. Dan, put that on the list.
More janitors.
Waterproof switch.
Waterproof switches, okay.
Rice.
Okay, so I was just going to go briefly over each of the boxes that we built. This was the starting network equipment. These were some of the names that we came up with. I mean, it's mostly denied. We didn't really do too much that was terrible to the network equipment. It's really stuff your network guys should be securing anyway. So we had some really nasty plans for the router. We ended up scratching it at the last minute, but just because it was just too mean.
Lovely to hear about.
You didn't want to know, trust me. It was bad. But it is mostly benign stuff. It's really stuff you should be securing as part of your default, you know, build and assessment anyway. You know, blocking telnet, enabling SSH only allowing SSH connections from your inside network. You know, securing down your SNMP streams or removing them entirely if you're not going to use SNMP. So it's all the basic sysadmin stuff or network admin stuff that you guys should be doing anyway. You would have been fine on these routers and switches. So I'm actually a bit surprised that the Red Team was still getting into them, you know, days later. Especially when you guys have physical access. There's not even really any reason to have remote connectivity enabled. So shut off the V2Is or, you know, disable the logins from the Juniper. I mean, you have a console cable if you really need to get into it. So not Thorn Open Shield. This is a 2K laptop. It was on the HP laptop. There was a hidden file registry hack. I'm kind of going like memory here, so I have most of the guys here to kind of speak to it a little bit better if you have questions. But basically, it was a hidden file registry hack, and I believe even if you went to the menu to view the hidden files, they still didn't show up, no matter what. We renamed, he took all the shortcuts out of the start menu, so the start menu was completely blank. Renamed Notepad to Notepad. It was SSH is fully secure, so we installed free SSHD for you guys. You guys, that was the one that didn't have a browser at all, right? It was, yeah. So yeah, no browser because the internet's insecure, so you shouldn't go with it. So that was a favor for you, really. And it had our usual smattering of VNC, telnet servers. I think we had SNMP running, and you know the normal stuff that we do. So again. should be part of your regular toolkit, your regular assessment to go in and lock down set services. Salmon Linux, there was a lot of chatter about this box. That was on the Dell G620, the Gray Tower. There's a Linux from scratch install because Marcus is really mean. The spawn package manager, basically all it did, if I remember this right, is it basically opened up links to some Romanian or Russian search engine and found the source package, website for you so you can download it and compile it yourself. You should be doing it, right? Everybody compiles it all in on their own. Nobody runs Ubuntu or all these pre-compiled binaries. That's for noobs. You guys are noobs. So, did anybody actually find the homepage for the Salmon Linux? Yeah. So yeah, I wish I should have pulled. If I had more time, I'd pull a picture down of it. But yeah, it was excellent use of the marquee tag, which I think was deprecated like back in '99, with a giant ASCII salmon just kind of floating across the screen. It was really fun. I remember building. He just finished the webpage, and I fired up my laptop the next day, and it just popped open with Firefox to this fish coming across my laptop. It made me laugh, so it was my homepage for a while. But yeah, so that was built up. The spawn package manager basically went up. Yeah, I covered that. So Thorn OpenShield. This was another box that there was a lot of chatter about. Basically, the reason the XAMPP is on there twice is because it was installed twice in 2 different locations, and it was this whole. It actually wasn't even our intention originally to install XAMPP on there twice. It was more out of necessity because the first place we installed it apparently broke, and then so we installed it the second time, but we forgot to stop MySQL from the first time we installed it. So the second one kind of overrode the first one, and there was this big inconsistency going back and forth. So we just deleted all the files out of the first, or all the MySQL files out of the first install, and then we just ran it off the second one. That seemed to still cause you guys trouble, so okay, that worked.
This is space.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So when we do one of our lessons learned over the years is making really small partitions to to clone things between the systems, and so we give them 25 gigs. Yeah, so it was a 25 gig partition, and most of those I think were on 250 gig drives, so you guys have plenty of room, but we had a lot of teams coming up like, you gave us a box with only 100 megs, like what are we supposed to do with that? And I'm like, you had another 120 or 225 gigs, you could have just expanded the partitioning, and oh, that makes sense, yeah. So yeah, we do the partition small on purpose. It's more out of necessity rather than we just like to screw with you, but it's nice when those two line up. Ibram Gaunt was another one. So that's in the first time I logged into this box after it got built. I think Brian and I pulled together and we both went, what did he do? Like we didn't understand, but that was running the Tomcat and GBoss and a bunch of other Java terms I don't understand. To come up with your guys' e-commerce site, it relied on at least 3 other boxes. Is that 2? At least two, if not 3 other boxes. If either of those other boxes went down, the whole site crashed. So we tried to, that was kind of our spider that went out and poked everything. The application and database was actually written to be extremely vulnerable. So the red team was quite happy when they found that and figured out that they could use that to exfiltrate data and place things. So that, yeah, we've never really done it to that level before, and I kind of liked it, so I would expect it to come back again. But yeah, so Icarus. There was another Dell 790. It was only running server core, so I'm sure you guys were happy with that. We logged in and just got to do a screen. It was also running Hyper-V behind the scenes on not a lot of RAM with 2 VMs sitting inside of it. Ebony Computer was one of them. That was where your Exchange server was sitting. So in order to even get to it, I don't know if you had to have the Hyper-V manager from a desktop.
For Ebony Computer, you want desktop.
Okay, so you had a remote desktop for this one, so hooray for that. But you had the other backup AD controller, which I don't believe had remote desktop. And so you guys definitely had to figure out that A, Hyper-V was installed, and B, you needed to get the tools to actually remotely manage those machines. So that was more of a lesson in discovery, and hopefully you guys figure it out. Yeah.
What kind of optimization did you use the Exchange server? I installed it.
It was Korean, so okay, to solve that mystery is Korean.
Very, very
So this was a Red Star OS. It's very, very, very Korean on one of the Dell laptops, and it literally there were 6 of us standing around a laptop trying to run through the installer. Like, is that okay? Is that canceled? I don't know. How do we partition it? Just on Slash. Just mount everything on Slash. Yeah, so we don't know anybody that speaks Korean, so that was a fun trial for us. And then at that point, we couldn't figure out how to install anything because the Fedora version it was based on was so old that we didn't have the heart to do it. So, yeah, there wasn't much else going on other than everything was in Korean. Pants was another box that we just kind of threw together. It was Slackware, which I think is a Slackware derivative, but I don't really know much else. I don't think we did much else with that one. Jerkwater was one that I personally built. So I ran Bind on it under XP Service Pack 2, which is excellent. I recommend it for production. You better hurry though, because you're going to run out of support here. But, so, I mean, you guys know we had to have at least one XP box with the April coming up. But, so this one, I tried to get tricky the first time I installed it and just installed it directly into the Firefox downloads folder wherever I downloaded it. And kept all the configuration files in there. And then it turns out Bind doesn't like paths with spaces in them, so the service would just never start. It kept logging out with like, I don't know how to start. So I installed it a second time. It wasn't in the default, but it was in a path that didn't have any spaces in it, and that seemed to work a lot better. But I think I was still using the configuration files that were in the original install location, so I was kind of hoping you guys would just wipe out your download folders and then have no more DNS, and then I would laugh a lot. Otherwise, the box was pretty benign. But it was just Windows XP, so take that with a grain of salt. The GIFSIN, again, this is the ASA in the cloud. I'm actually surprised that a lot of teams didn't change the passwords on these at least. And like I mentioned earlier, most of them are using the default credentials by the end of day 2. So please know it's on your networks, even if they're not physically in front of you. And I think those were blank, almost literally blank configs, just enough to get traffic in and out, and that was pretty much it. Indy 500 was an open Indiana, which is kind of like Solaris, but probably worse. I don't understand Solaris, so it's, this is one of your cloud VMs. It's running an HTTP server. It had MySQL and a bunch of other stuff on it, but we got this one was a bear to get into VMware, so we got to it really late, but it did have a backdoor SSH process on it. The guy that built it works in Palo Alto, so he's pretty familiar with malware and stuff. So, Tariel, which I heard a lot less about than I anticipated I would, but that was your primary AD controller, and I didn't know offhand what. Huh? It was running MongoDB. Oh, okay, so yeah, so this was one of the boxes that everyone relied on up in the cloud. So every time somebody requested, HTTP check, it ran up to your cloud in the back, and so if you guys brought down the primary AD, then obviously the e-commerce would come down with it as well. Some of the other VMs you guys probably saw on there, there was the Playable Quake client. You can play directly on VMware, which I thought was really nice. And some of the various legacy operating systems, so that you guys find the Windows 3 one, and the next step.
It was nice.
What's that?
Windows V beta was nice.
Yeah, Windows ME beta that expired. Yeah. So we couldn't find one that hadn't expired. We don't know why.
Actually, we fixed that. So it's actually running.
Set the date back to September, between September 1999 and January 2000.
Okay, yeah, so we played with the clock and actually got to work.
We had 3 months.
So, 3 months. So that was just a fun thing to put on there. But they were actually burning a significant amount of CPUs, so we just left them. And that's pretty much all I have. Are there any other questions about what we did, why we did it, what do we do again? Okay, thanks guys.